Yeah.
The name starts to, but yes, so I'm there.
I'm Cindy. I'm Nora.
I'm Tim.
I'm Allison, for those of you I haven't met yet. You're familiar with seeing Joey Laurie. So I'm one of the attorneys in the cities, with the city of Rochester, and Joey's no longer with the city, so I'm going to be here in his place. He's moved on. We miss him very dearly.
Conifer, there was an announcement
Yeah,
the
I
other
was
day.
like, I couldn't remember the name, but so
Yeah.
we miss him very dearly, but I'm very happy for him.
Everyone's going home.
Yes, it is too bad.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he'll be miserable and he will then come back.
Yeah, if you want to start kind of the TV report.
I would really wait until we have a quorum to. Unless there's something that doesn't need to be voted on, it's just like background information. but it
Well,
should
and
be
maybe we
repeated
can
then.
talk further about, some ideas on locations and times, because we don't necessarily need to be voting on any of that. I know you particularly liked coming in here today, because you work right down the
I
street.
work off of Buffalo Road.
And I think it might have been tough for you, and I think it was very tough for Karina, who actually is a heel at the moment. But how do the rest of you feel about this location, or if you have other ideas for locations, or if coming here has made you think, no, actually, City Hall is just fine?
Well, it's fine, what's better to be in downtown? It's kind of in between for me, working out and going to west side. On the way.
Cause what we're sort of, I can continue us on the, every other month lunchtime, dinner time schedule. And it's certainly more convenient for me to be at City Hall, I think for you too. But, we can continue to try locations. But I do want to be as flexible as possible with what's going to work best for the board. One of the other things that we've talked about before is whether we wanted to move to fewer meetings in a year. And for a while we said we didn't. But we're going to not have a lot of money soon, so we may want to revisit having meetings every other month or even quarterly, where we can, still get done what we need to get done, but not necessarily have to mobilize every month. So I don't know if people have thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, that sounds like there's not much. Right, if there's not much to do. Yeah. Is there plans to find more money, to get more money, request more money, extort money from people? Get a huge donor.
I would love to say that there is more money in the works. There is advocacy in the works,
Okay.
but we all know that advocacy doesn't magically necessarily turn into anything.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Mm.
Like there is, I think we've talked about this before, there has been, and I think it's being renewed, legislation before the state to increase a particular fee for real estate transactions that that has not been voted on any of the previous times it's been proposed, but it continues to be proposed, and that would be wonderful. But it might also just be per the county that it's in, so it depends on how many transactions Monroe County would have.
And then there were restrictions on the advocacy that we could personally do for that, right? Or is that?
I think there's restrictions on advocacy I could do.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I can look into. I don't know off the top of my head what kind of restrictions there might be for board members, but that's certainly something I can look into and then follow up with you all.
Yeah, cause it would be a shame to have all of the work that we've done be a flash in the pan, and it's been really good work. I think also, since it's not related to voting, we can talk about updates. There are not tons of updates. Community Place is trickling down their last bits of money. Like I mentioned last month, they have, like all of our entities, they've exceeded their goals, which is great. Esther project is winding down. Rochester Refugee Resettlement has said that they could come and talk to us at the June meeting. So assuming we had a June meeting, that's when they are thrilled to come and talk about what they've learned and what they liked and how they would do things differently. Also what I have. They're really voting. Hooray! No, we can't have any action without you. Come sit in the middle over here.
Okay.
All right. Wow.
So would someone like to move to approve Marchman?
Well, we haven't opened the meeting. Don't you have to officially open the meeting? You did it? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it just wasn't voting. Yeah, we're all good. We have someone would like to motion and second.
No,
No.
I misunderstood. We're voting on whether the March minutes are good.
Okay. Motion.
Okay, so Latasha and Cindy,
Okay.
motion second.
All right. Okay.
I'll take it, don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see the minute. Board approval. You just write
So if
that
you
first.
go to where, the first where it says resolution in all caps,
That one?
that-
Yeah.
yeah,
That's it.
and then write minutes on that one.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So, we're good. Now we can.
All right,
Yeah.
down to real stuff. So, I am about to learn how to submit things to the state related to our budget. This will be my first time. And one of the first things I have to do is submit our budget. And before you got here, we were talking about how we don't have any new money coming in. But I still have to present a budget. So if you had a chance to look at it either on the attachment or online, now is a great time to chat about it. I found it a little weird, but of course it makes sense that even though we used money during our current fiscal year, it was all last year's money. So it looks like we're completely in the negative. It's because we're using last year's money and you don't count it in the year that you're in.
Mhm.
The proposed budget assumes that we're going to have $100,000 that comes in from somewhere. I don't know whether we will, but it's nice to have something to plan for. And the municipal subsidies and grants that are in there is the in-kind money that's paying for yours truly and Allison, as well as the tangible money that the city uses to pay for our audit. Let's see,
Is there a reason that's separate from salaries and wages? Under expenses.
so because of where it comes from, municipal is income, and then salaries and wages is the 10, and then there should be there's $6,000 out of the 90, because the audit is a professional service, so that's where that is. And then I proposed that we might grant another three $30,000 awards to entities next year, assuming we got another $100,000. What other questions, if any? Feel free to disagree with it, feel free to make suggestions.
Well, the fund, for,
Oh, the money that we currently have? No, money does not expire. The money that we are trickling down is from the original $1 million that we got from Enterprise.
Oh.
And like once a year, they reach out and say, how are things going? And I say, it's great, here's what we've done. And they say, that's wonderful. But they closed out.
okay,
So the money is ours to work with. As long as we're using it towards the mission that we set up originally. Right now, because of the two awards that we have made, Family Promise and Project Urge, we have about $46,000 available to make another grant and a half if we want. But again, that doesn't show up on this budget because it's still last year's money. Yeah.
Many, my people said. I mean, it's as simple as it really gets.
Yes, I look forward to the time when we have tons of money from very different sources coming in. And then I actually have to really be careful about where all this comes in and goes
Right.
out. But I guess this is good practice for me because I've never done it. And for you, because you've never gone through it.
so where else do we look for money?
That's a really great question. I mean, as Tim said, right, advocacy at
Yeah.
the local, state, federal level. We've had some meetings with different foundations. I mean, not that I would suggest this, but a lot of times entities do just a donor campaign. I don't think we want to be doing a GoFundMe. So I don't really know. I mean, I suppose we always could be applying for grants. But then you have to be careful about which ones you're gonna apply for, because it's time and effort to apply for them, and depending on how competitive they are. Is that what you wanna do? But that is a possibility.
I think you also run the risk of, I don't agree with it. Who we have, where we would, but it was brought up to them is why do we give you money? So you can then make that money into another grant, give it to someone else, why don't we just
Right,
cut out the middleman?
Right.
You know, kind of a harder.
yes, absolutely.
Just we do it better.
Well, and that's the point I made, which is what
Right.
your selection committee, the bank of which I will not speak the name specifically, but your selection committee may not be representative of the way that kind of the pitch for the RHSF was supposed to be. It's just employees of the bank, you know, whereas we kind of come from different backgrounds, so there is a pitch to it, they just didn't go. That didn't grab them in the way that I would know.
There are people that do that.
Right.
So I guess, you know, as like New York State, they're just gonna be like, okay, here's money. Contact the- you guys do it. So that's like the
Yeah.
better entity to go to, right? Maybe.
Could be.
Well, so what I'm wondering, maybe along the lines of the advocacy, and I have not looked this up, but what other trust funds are there? Housing trust funds are there in the state? Like what other cities, municipalities have them? Is it possible for us to kind of band, but and if it's a statewide policy decision, could we not speak to those? If we all,
If we all go, we should
Oh.
get like a giant pot of money that we split between the counties or whatever it is.
So quarterly, I meet with the other folks who have housing trust funds. Ithaca has one, but it's not formal. It's very interesting. They have what they call a housing trust fund, but works differently. Syracuse is on the exact same trajectory. They used enterprise money and they started a slightly different but similar housing trust fund. Buffalo was thinking about it, but I don't believe they did. Binghamton was going to start one and then the person Lee left.
What is the structure of it? They have a pretty.
They have a gentleman's agreement with the university. They have
With
nothing
like
in writing.
Cornell or? What? Well, they have INHS, which is like big there, they do a lot of work, are they involved at all?
So there aren't, and I believe there's one on Long Island that has started, and, I'm forgetting, Hudson was the other one. And so Hudson, they're much more familiar with the Long Island folks. So we have a quarterly meeting and we talk about what we're all doing and who we should be talking to and can we get our lobbyists involved. I think we all do agree that, you know, it would make more sense for us to be a group. But so far it hasn't gotten us very far.
if there are no more questions, would you want to go about trying to?
We have to vote to approve or not approve the proposed budget. If there were changes, we would vote on as amended. If there are no changes, we vote on it as is. And then by I think it's April 30th, I submit it to the state.
Would someone like to motion to approve the budget as it is? A motion by Cindy, seconded by Natasha. All in favor? Any opposed? Awesome.
All right. House of Mercy. They submitted a amended proposal for what they'd like to do with the remainder of their funds. They would like to ask for, I want to say it's a 6 months extension, make sure that's correct. They would like to move a little bit further back over into case management. And they would like to focus their case management support on approximately 4, they don't know these 4 people yet, but for 18 to 21-year-olds. Because what they've said is that in their general run of what they do, they're finding that that particular demographic, there's not as much support and they are a little bit more lost in the system than some of the other households. And so they kind of like to hold those folks' hands to have kind of a mentor. 1821. They're calling it stepping up and stepping out. So they want to kind of mentor these youngsters and kind of provide them with life skills and housing related skills and some direct assistance to cover rent for up to 6 months or security deposit or peripheral things, food, clothing, cleaning supplies, etc. I think one of the things they mentioned is they have met with Rochester Refugee Resettlement and they really liked the model that our RRS had. So if this sounds somewhat familiar, I think that's So they have spent 6,500 of their originally approved 30. They would sort of like to shift the budget over and provide this new activity for 6 months to see how it goes.
Have they given numbers in the same sense, or is that just their general pitch? Like, are they saying how much goes to this manager versus other types of funds? Maybe give a break.
Yes, so they are assuming 7,200 in staff. Program supervisor, mentor personnel, functional areas. And 12,000 of direct assistance to these 4 to be bound persons.
Okay, what is the advocate, where the poor participants coming from? Where they?
These are all folks that show up at the House of Mercy for assistance. So they will be taking them from their current general pool of folks who show up to see them. They think 4. They have not provided that.
Wait, are they single people? Is it young families?
This sounds like just individuals, but I don't think they're restricting if it
Right.
was a person with a family. But no, I don't actually know the demographics of the folks that live in House of Mercy. But it tends to be folks who have significant chronic homelessness problems.
Mhm.
Yeah, you probably have more familiarity with the kind of folks that they would see.
Yeah, it's a lot more, I would say, like friendly, less barriers like the traditional DHS shelters. When you have your set curfew, you're in at this time, you can't leave once you, or you can't get back in.
Mhm.
Theirs is a lot more flexible because they aren't only funded by the county, so they're funded a lot by donations, so they can operate a little more as they want to, rather than from the state says to do it this way.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
My concern is, it sounds so far from, I guess, the initial conversations of what we would be funding. It just sounds like it's just getting more and more farther and farther away.
What's the alternative? They just.
No, so the alternative is their contract ends this month.
Well, so if we were to extend what they were as they were, give them more time to try what they initially pitched.
So what they have said is very similar to the concerns that this group raised when we took the lead, right? Is that because they didn't necessarily have landlords already on board, they find that they get a lot of calls from prospective landlords who are very excited about getting rehab money. But then as soon as it comes with one of our people, they get ghosted. And so they haven't been able to accomplish the goals that they set out to do. And to go back to our conversation about meeting with the foundation, in some ways, we don't have to feel bad about that, right? That's what we're here to do, is try things because we don't have the same strings on our money. But that doesn't mean we want to just throw it out there and to whoever.
The numbers again, they're asking was it 20, 25, well, did they use 65,000 out of the 30? So they have the,
6573-ish.
so they have about 23,000 left, and of the 23,000 left, it was around 7,000 to staff, and was it 13,000 to direct services? Or 4 individuals?
For 6 months. The math is not math.
Yeah, so like, I'm wondering, without us changing their project, is it possible to ask them? Is it possible for them to maybe increase that number past 4?
And the age, like, that is cool, just.
And provide more information on the demographics. Yeah.
18 to 21, first of all, that's the most cool. Out of all our age groups that don't have the opportunity, as for somebody else that's older, they have less resources. So some of those 18-year-olds still considered for the population of pediatrics. Because a lot of places may see some 18 and 19-year-olds as pediatrics, so they can get more benefits out of people. Especially like healthcare resources and like all that other stuff. So they have more resources. So 18 to 21, I think they need to expand it because that's such a young population. And if they don't have the case manager with the skill set to deal with these 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, then they got to do something else. I think
So we,
Real quick, I think we're getting into like, we had a long conversation several meetings ago about like the use of the board and these types of things, like at this stage where they're modifying the proposal, but we're also getting into us thinking that we should modify the re-proposal that we've submitted, and I guess the reason why I'm not speaking up here is I'm not sure what level of conversation we should be having for teaching their second proposal. What of this is more applicable for the selection committee, and should that have gone there first and us being given a report in advance of this meeting? Like, I'm just curious how far we should be taking this right now.
well, and I think that is, we're in that slippery slope of, we know a lot of things about a lot of things. But we don't wanna move too far down to trying to change it for them or asking them to change it. You know, they would like to, I think, keep trying a little bit of what they were doing, the rehab and then their guests, and they want to try this case management program for 4 people. If we like that idea, we should vote yes, kind of as is. If we don't, we can ask them questions, demographics, etc. But I don't think we can go back and say, can you change the age group? Can you change how many? We need to kind of look at what they gave us and say, how do we feel about what they gave us? You know, yes or no?
And I think comes with a point, if this is not necessarily known, but if they saw what someone else was doing with a similar grant and they were like that, they were like, some of that we want to try it, but we give them that money, the other organization to see if it works, and we have not talked to them yet. So why would we try it twice? I
Yeah.
just learned out to, I want to hear from them before we start doing elsewhere.
And that's what I feel like, that's what makes it difficult, with the things that you brought up is also, without asking those questions and knowing those answers, how do you vote yes? So it's essentially, it's kind of putting us in a position to just say no, because we don't have information. Versus if we had more information, where maybe could have been that.
And it just to tie it all back together, when we're talking about how do we get more funding and making pitches to foundations, like, and not to seem difficult, but like, what is our value add if we have the experience at the table and we're putting forth some type of mission or some sort of vision? But like, the main thing that we're trying to pitch to a foundation, like, hey, we've got these resources, we can purify this, we can workshop, and we've got this experience. If we don't do that, we just take the proposal at face value and say, well, we're either gonna approve or not going to. Then what is our value versus the team at the bank that makes those decisions? It doesn't line up. We're dissonant. We either are gonna lend that advice and work with the small organizations and try to refine it and utilize some philosophy of what we think housing stability is to purify that. That's our value add to get funding from other sources, or we're gonna review it at face value. But we gotta do one of those things. Kind of straddling both.
So, I mean, another option is, it doesn't have to be a vote yes or no today, it could also be a vote to table the action and to have some additional information, these are some questions raised. See if that information can be gotten and then brought to the board at the next meeting.
What's the contract, what is the contract?
next weekend.
So. You got it.
Well, they can be on hold, you know, they can invoice us for what they have.
That's one of the questions that they can do 6 months in. I guess. The transition. And take out this. Report with this. The goal to. I don't know, I think that's the question that's happening. Hardcore programming or something. Right, other agencies. What's going on? You know. It was a good idea, we might come because it was a great idea, but I guess what I come up with, their ambition versus. And
But do you mean the transition plan for
After
the
the-
individuals?
yeah, for the individuals after the 6 months, after they. I know it could take a lot longer than 6 months to stabilize someone, but it's a good leg up for some, many people who are, I'm just like, then I could do this, but then. So if they have some, like a case manager. Nothing doesn't happen. To reduce the chances of
Sure,
that, right? Nothing won't happen. Reduce the chances.
absolutely. So this is a little bit of an awkward one because it's an existing proposal, right? So I did not take it back to the review committee, but to go back to Tim's point. Theoretically, all the proposals that were brought to you were vetted and were proposed as recommended by the review teams. There have been a few that you have not thought about because they did not meet the threshold. So this is a little bit different, but you know, there is some concern for making sure that, you know, some of the questions that you would ask have already been answered. But I want to go on a little bit of a tangent. Theoretically, if we don't have money or if money's coming in 6 months or a year, one of the value adds that we could offer is technical assistance to agencies who would like to propose pilot projects or small other projects, whether or not to us. If we didn't have any money, it wouldn't be to us. But that is something that, you know, this is a group that knows a lot about a lot. So that's a possibility for us to, in the interim, have meetings and an entity comes and we ask them a lot of questions and they can refine their plans. You know, that kind of technical assistance is something that you don't get from funders.
And I'm guessing those would that open meetings because we're not doing official business.
I don't know the
It,
answer to that.
it would really depend on what was going on and who was involved and what the purpose was, so it's not, that can't be answered as like a general, it would have to be, I'd have to vet like every kind of scenario.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're in compliance. But that's definitely something that's on our mind and I'm happy to hear that it's.
I'm just
Being
wondering
part
if
of, yeah.
that organizations like we have a great idea, we wanna apply for it, do I really wanna bear all of my ideas out, public for someone else to just take from me, you know?
Well, yeah, and in a few months, when these are only in-person meetings, there is less opportunity for that to happen, but it is a very good point. So I'm not asking us to vote to do that or not do that, I'm just saying, what a great idea.
Yep.
That is something, because I think one of the best things and the hardest things about this board is that you're all so full of knowledge and helpfulness that it's hard not to want to get your hands dirty and make the best program possible, but that isn't we only have so much depth that we can do, right? We're marinating the meat, we cannot necessarily slice up the meat and cook it for them. But maybe there's a way that we can do that. So I think what I'm hearing is we are not necessarily looking to vote a yes or a no on this at this point. We are interested in the demographics of the folks that they currently serve or the folks that they propose to serve.
They wanna do it, whoever,
Right.
whoever can be part of the project.
And what they plan on doing after they've helped somebody for 6 months, like how do they know they succeeded? Is that what I'm hearing?
You know, I'm really, I guess, concerned with the value of the dollar. That dollar ask versus the number of participants.
The bang for the buck.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's a good question for right now.
Yeah.
How that dollar amount number is 6 months of grant for one person to take up all of that.
That is absolutely a valid concern, right?
Unless it's up to that problem, honestly, you know, placing so they can put in.
Right.
So to that problem, that's reasonable. Well, if it's not subsidized housing, I don't know. There's one bedroom going for like $9,000 to $1200. That is it's crazy.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't, considering the proposal is like very markedly different than the one that they got approved, just say, sorry, this is not approved, we're not extending you. Feel free to reapply to this idea, so that way you can kind of go with that same level of scrutiny that like the beginning.
Absolutely.
I think we're here to try things to give people the opportunity to replace and that it won't work, or at least it's not the right timing, the right strategy. I think there's value still in finding out things don't work. I don't think there's any shame in them try this.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'd say potential losses, that's something different, but I also know that we're not all here. So I don't want to necessarily put some of the other voices out.
Well, we have quorum.
Right, we can,
Yeah, there's nothing, that is a valid decision to make, right? That's the proposal is not just do we extend, but do we allow them to try this new thing? And the answer can be no. That is up to the board. And I suppose, we're not legal folks, you are legal folks, but we're not saying with prejudice, without prejudice. They are, we can certainly go back to them and say,
I think that we should. I think that it would be fair. For us to be fair, we supposed to be a board where we let people do pilots and projects and stuff. I think it would be nice to see if they. See those questions, and then if they come back with something that we don't really know. With what you said, you want to see what you said, kind of thing, maybe they have the information they just didn't like.
Right.
Something more, something different. Something different.
And it sounds like they're presenting something that we probably approved to another organization. Yeah. After speaking. As a way to be able to spend down the grant.
So I guess if someone would want a motion to table until May.
we can motion to vote on yes or no, we can motion to table, we can, motion to whatever.
I mean, this thing that a lot of people said different.
Right.
Suggestions, so this is our, what do we want?
Nothing precludes them from submitting this proposal as a separate proposal, right? It's still open. Okay. I think, if we think about how we wanna treat proposals going forward, I don't think we wanna set a precedent personally. That you can submit a proposal under one idea, when it doesn't work, change the idea completely and get that same amount of money reallocated to the new idea. I think we voted on a proposal, they wanna submit a separate proposal, then submit a separate proposal, and we'll look at it. Not clearly that money's available, that would be my vote.
So you could make that motion.
I will make the motion to deny the request for an extension. And communicate to them that they are welcome to reapply. But
Second. All in favor? All opposed?
But that, again, just one, that does not preclude them from answering your questions if they would reapply.
Yeah.
Or something different, but I kind of see the point where it's like. If this just keeps happening, it's gonna take up a lot of time and it does kind of sound like, especially we're missing what, 4 people who don't need to.
So, yeah, so I will go back to them and I will let them know that this one is ending. However, here's some feedback. And if they'd like to submit a separate proposal, we would be willing to send that to the review committee.
Would that proposal go with our, or like a basic, how does that work? No, they-
So what happens is what money that they haven't spent up to now comes back to
Comes
the
back.
pot,
Okay,
and then they just can start over.
right, that makes sense.
No, I don't remember when the proposal first originally came in, but could they spend enough time, we should go right back to another 30 day with this new concept?
They can, we don't. It's up to the board. Cause we've not decided whether, whether you can repeat. I think with our limited amount of money, we wouldn't necessarily want to renew proposals. But if somebody wanted to submit a brand new proposal for a brand new thing and we happen to have funded them before for something else. If the board likes the proposal. That's not the end of the world. You are the board, you can decide whether you like or not, or don't like that.
Well, especially with our limited amount of funds, want to make sure that, I don't know, it's sort of like, when you only have so much money left, you want to make sure that it's being spent wise too. And so it's sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling that right now,
Absolutely. Alright. The only, I suppose, new business that I have is, the term for regular board members is 3 years, the term for officers is 2 years. So July would be when we would vote in to renew our officers or swap out officers. So just be thinking about whether, you might be interested in being an officer or remaining an officer, or please run away as fast as possible because you can't believe they made you do that for 2 years. So just keep that in mind, and we will be revisiting it, but I figured I would, again, give us all a little bit of information in advance. Is there any other new business or old business that people want to revisit?
We're still under time to that we will wait.
I was curious, do we have more dates on, what's that project along New York?
They never submitted a proposal. I was super excited about their project, and they never
Yeah,
submitted
when they
anything.
came in and spoke with us, and then it's just like, oh,
Mhm.
along New York.
Yeah, they were going to sort of be a bridge funder, but we were gonna be a bridge funder. No, they never submitted an actual proposal. So we cannot consider them.
Maybe they're regrouping.
Or maybe they were able to access it some other way.
Another-
I was in a very different RHSF meeting a couple of weeks ago, and someone from one of the service provider agencies was talking about utilizing that money. So it's entirely possible that somebody already did it without us. All right,
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Laura, second. Natasha? All in favor? Any opposed? Well, good. Okay, one side.
out to the west side, my goodness, I'm actually not sure I've ever been to this library.
My doctor's office is right across the street. Go to his branches. Yeah. Buy her thing.